Yes, indeed. Welcome into another episode of Total Hockey Now. I got it right this week, boys. Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel. I am at Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard. Over there is at Ant Rivera 86, and down there is at Fuzzy Chris 91, Christopher Moraes. Fellas, it is the last episode before Christmas. Hope everybody's got their shopping done, or at least most of their shopping done.
Yeah, haven't started.
My goodness. Oof.
Just haven't. Sorry.
I mean, that's not as big a deal in maybe 15, 20 years ago because of the, Amazon and all that stuff. But yeah, you're really pushing the wire there, my friend.
Look, man, it's not over until the last second and the last whistle goes in the third period. So we just got to mount a comeback here. We're down maybe 2. We got to start, grinding. Got to start taking some chances. That's it.
Not over until 6 p.m. Christmas Eve when the stores close and you're heading to a Walgreens to pick up some gift cards.
There you go. That's the last stop right there, if nothing else. I have a tiny bit more to do on Saturday, and then I should be wrapped up nice and good. Pun not intended there, but it actually works. So, wrapped up. There you go. I am a father, so I'm allowed a little leeway on those jokes. Plenty to talk about on today's edition of Total Hockey Now. We're going to do some Jack Adams odds. Spencer Carberry in Washington, the odds-on favorite there. See if there's any other plays that maybe we like. Some long shots. We'll do our second part of our fantasy Festivus here. Today we'll focus on the centers and the wings. Last week we did defensemen and goaltenders. Not a lot of guys had to go to the table and actually eat and hear the airing of grievances amongst the back-end players. I have a feeling we're going to send a few more forwards to the table today. You saw these guys saw the list. Maybe we'll. There's only 1 or 2 that I'm not on that list. I'll put it to you that way. Nonetheless, let's get right to the NHL news here of the day. And it's we all expected a trade coming with the New York Rangers here. Kaapo Kakko's name has been in and out of trade rumors for a long time. He gets scratched on Sunday against the St. Louis Blues. Voiced his displeasure with it. Felt like he was just a young guy catching the rap there, and away we go. And then they trade him yesterday to the Seattle Kraken for defenseman Will Borgen, a 3rd-round pick in the upcoming draft, and a 6th-round pick in the 2026 draft. Let's start with just the Kraken end of it first, because it to me just really seems like it's going to be a nice fit for them. He's going to get a chance to play on a team that's going to use him the right way. Not that he didn't have ample opportunity in New York, but I just feel like he even said it. He's looking forward to a fresh start. I think he's going to do just fine there, and Seattle did a very nice job capitalizing on a buy low situation.
They definitely did, man. Things it's in 2 weeks we'll see what other Ranger gets traded. That seems to be the trend right now. And look, good for Seattle here. They got a player on a buy low. They didn't necessarily give up much either to get it. Like, no offense to Will Borgen, but he's not moving the needles for the Rangers here. It's the way Kakko was talking about his scratch. Like, you hear players sometimes voice their frustration, but he was very blunt about it. And to his credit, he wasn't wrong. Like, he was not the problem on that team. We could probably identify some other players who are bigger problems. He's not one of them. Sure, he hasn't maybe lived up to what everybody expected him to, but he is certainly not the problem there. So it's another player who was unhappy in New York and now goes somewhere else. And to me, like, the Rangers want to be like, this is like, has nothing to do with him being scratched and then being traded. But I mean, it's sure a pretty strong coincidence there. But yes, good for Kakko for going somewhere else. And I mean, who knows what happens to the Rangers now?
Yeah, that's where we're going next, because there's not much to say about the Seattle end of it, because they get a player that's going to play for them, that's probably going to contribute if he can pick his game up. It's just, there's really nothing to not like from the Seattle end there. Now let's get into the deeper issue with the Rangers, who have lost 11 of 14. Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad's name have been tossed around as potential trade candidates. They bring in Borgen, and listen, the picks are nice, whatever. Borgen, he showed some offensive flair for one season. He needed a change of scenery as well. The Rangers had a hole in the blue line. Now they could send Mancini back down, which they did. They brought Rempe up. Maybe Rempe can provide some energy at some point. Who the heck knows? But they fill a hole. He's fine. but I just feel like for a guy like Kaapo Kakko, yes, it was buy low. His value had sunk, but like this is a former second or overall pick here, and that's the return they're getting for him. Not ideal, but I think the deeper thing we got to speak about here is just the Chris Drury situation in the locker room and just the complete disconnect between the higher ups and the locker room right now.
I'm not crying for the Rangers. I just want that to be out
Understood.
there. Yeah. Like I feel no pity for the Rangers, Chris Kreider, the whole gang. I could care less. So watching them in a little bit of misery, like, does it bring a smile to my face the same way it probably did to the Grinch when he started to steal Christmas? Yes. But I mean, look, it's not fun to be in New York right now. Like everybody wants to go to New York, have a good time, but it doesn't seem like anybody wants to play for the New York Rangers right now. It is like there's tension there. And when you lose, that tension gets worse. It gets amplified, right? Because if you win, then it doesn't matter, right? Like if you winning solves everything. If you're not sure how to solve a problem in hockey, just win, baby. That'll fix everything. Doesn't matter what it is. The Rangers are not doing that. They look terrible. They defensively look horrible. This is a team with no structure. They look lost. And again, I feel no pity for Ranger fans. Not a single ounce of me feels bad. Now, does this date back to like 10 years ago to what Chris Kreider may have done to Carey Price? We'll never know. But, I'm just saying, I don't feel bad for them.
I give the floor to the Devil fan now, who probably hates the Rangers less than the Canadiens fan, but go ahead.
One of the words that sports fans don't want to hear living in New York is rebuild, rebuild, rebuild. And I think that that's something that's going to have to happen because they never did it. We talked about it last week. They never really did it properly the last time the Rangers got into a mess like this. But I don't know. This kind of feels a little bit worse because there are a lot of talented players on this team. And I think the time has run out with this core group of players. Now, you unleash everybody, you trade everybody, and you build around Shesterkin since you gave him the big contract. You build around Alexis Lafreniere since you gave him the big contract. And you got to start all over. I know the fans don't want to hear it, especially from a Devils fan, but I've been through enough in this last decade to know that there are times when the Devils would go to the playoffs and you think they're turning it around with the Taylor Halls of the world, and it was just a one-hit wonder, and it was back down to the cellar again. And you don't want to be a team that gets to that point in time. So they have to figure out a way to turn this around. Everyone keeps talking about Peter Laviolette losing his job. It might be Drury that has to go here.
So, well, Marek Doucette checking in. Hi, guys. Happy holidays. I really do wish you and happy holidays to you. Considering the state of the Rangers, and then as a New York Jets fan, today it comes out that Woody Johnson was apparently using Madden ratings as a way to evaluate whether or not to acquire a receiver that went on to have his first 1,000-yard season in Cleveland.
That's a real thing? That's a real story?
With the way the Jets are run, absolutely.
I have to dive deep into this because I have not seen anything all day today, and I almost spit my water hearing that.
So basically, not to go down a football rabbit hole here, but the Jets had a chance to acquire Jerry Jeudy, former first-round pick that the Broncos had. Everybody knew they were trying to trade him. And apparently Woody's didn't like his Madden rating enough. So the Cleveland Browns, with Jameis Winston at quarterback, have made Jeudy one of the biggest receivers of the second half of the season. No, Aaron Rodgers definitely could not have benefited from that at all. No, not at all. I mean, yes, they went and got Devontae Adams. That's a whole other thing.
Well, I know Peter Laviolette's not this way, but I hope Chris Drury and the ownership that is at Madison Square Garden, which does not have a great track record, because if you look at the Knicks and how they differed from what the Rangers have done, I hope they don't get involved and start looking at the NHL 25 rankings.
So here's the thing with Chris Drury and the Rangers, and here's the thing you have to understand. The team is owned by Jim Dolan, right? Jim Dolan likes Chris Drury. He likes him as a person. So when Jim Dolan actually likes you as a person, you have an incredibly long leash. You can suck at your job for a long time, but as long as you're in the office playing his band once in a while when he happens to be walking by the hall, JD and the straight shots or whatever the hell they're called, that's going to go a long way with Jim Dolan. So Drury's performance kind of irrelevant. Now, on one side of it, there's me that wants to be like, all right, listen, I understand as a player, you don't like the way he handled the Trouba situation. You don't like the way he handled the Gaudreau situation. I understand that can have an impact on the locker room and how you approach your job based on the culture, but you're also paid 6 to 7 figures a year to play hockey. Take a couple of days to sort your feelings out and then get over it and take it out on the other team. This cannot go to an 11 of 14 game losing streak. That is my initial reaction. But then the more you hear about what Drury is doing, like apparently, so after the 2022-23 season, they get rid of longtime trainer Jim Ramsey, which that did not go over well with probably anybody in the organization, especially the players. I mean, he was there going back to like the Mark Messier, Brian Leach days. So that's never going to be a popular move. Then apparently a PR staffer and a player went out to get dinner at some point. And I don't know the details of it, but it sounds like a harmless dinner. It doesn't sound like there was like a date or anything like that. Staffer gets fired, and like a memo goes out about making sure that you maintain professional protocol within the departments and all that stuff. And it's like, he's not there anymore. But when John Rosasco was the PR director of the Rangers, I'm pretty sure after a random event with Messier or Graves that they were doing, they were probably like, hey, let's go get a beer and a burger. And it was not a problem. So I don't understand, more needs to be said there. But Drury is running the team in a way that is just apparently nobody's happy with top to bottom, but they have been in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 of the last 4 years. So it's, on one side, it's tough to argue with that. But on the other side, it's like, okay, this guy is trying to impose these like massive culture changes in a situation that like, did it really need it? There's just a lot of discontent there. I personally think the way to solve this is Drury and the team need to get in a room together, go rent out a room at the local Marriott, lock the doors, bar the doors, and just everything needs to get out in the open. Everything. No hurt, nobody get offended. Everybody put everything, put your proverbial testicles on the table. Say everything you got to say, get it all out. And then see what happens from there. Because we saw the first move happen here with Kakko with getting traded, right?
Well, Trouba. Trouba was the first one.
Oh, I mean, Trouba, but that was like, we kind of knew that was happening. And that was also from a financial standpoint. Like they couldn't do anything until that contract was off the books. So however Drury, however he handled it, you don't like the way he went with the spring where he made things public that he didn't need to and all that. That's fine. But nonetheless, Trouba had to be traded before anything else could happen. As we saw with Shesterkin getting signed to an extension, 90 minutes later? So I think this is the first of a mid-sized tinker. Kakko is a guy that's been, even when things were good, was a guy whose name was in trade rumors. Now you got a little help on the blue line. You're trying to plug that hole that Trouba left. Now you see how things go for the next couple of weeks. Maybe a new guy in the locker room. When somebody new comes into an office, even if things are awful, you don't want to make everything apparent how awful it is in the office. You try to put a good foot forward. You try to put a decent work environment forward. So maybe something like that happens. I don't know. But there's a clear disconnect between the GM and the players, and the GM's not going anywhere, and the players might. And I understand both sides of it. That's not, you're not going to be your most productive in that environment, but it's also like, okay, it's a business. Things have to happen.
Well, I'll say this first, and this goes to James Dolan. It's great that James Dolan likes Chris Drury, but it's also bad as well. You go to the other team in that whole area, and you have the old Isaiah Thomas days.
Yes.
And you don't want to go. I always thought, I was like, does James Dolan really own the Rangers? Because I thought that they were always run so well over the past decade, and you will watch how the Knicks are run, and it's a totally different thing where he was just too involved. Here, he's not involved. You don't want him getting involved in the Rangers business. The Rangers went through last season, not as to this extent, but they went through a bad stretch and were able to come out of it. So we got to see if they're able to do that here. And like you said, maybe Drury has to sit down. I mean, that whole type of situation, it worked in baseball for the Mets. They had the meeting, they sat down, had the meeting, and they completely turned their season around. So that stuff can work. I don't know if this team still believes in Drury after all the stuff that has come out with how public the let's trade Kreider and Trouba stuff came out. I don't know how things go, but man, this is a tough situation right now for the Rangers. And boy, would it be a whole lot different if the guy that's across town, the number 1 pick, was on your team. But he's Jack Hughes's.
You know what's funny is you go back to like that draft, and there was actually a couple people like, oh, maybe Kakko won. He used to like no, like that, no. Like, yeah, as a Ranger fan, I was really hoping that would happen, but I knew it wasn't going to happen.
Did you ever see the video? I don't know. Someone posted it on social media. It was the party for the draft at Madison Square Garden, and all the fans cheered when Jack Hughes went number 1, and they chanted Kaapo Kakko, and now Kaapo Kakko's gone.
Yep, that's where we're at. Jack Hughes is going to go on to be a top 10 player in the league for probably the next 10 plus years. And the Rangers, before Christmas, I've got somebody texting me yesterday saying, are the Rangers really giving up on their season in December? And I'm like, not yet, but it's starting to look that way.
Let me ask you this real quick, Adam. Were you okay at that point where they got rid of John Davidson? Because he's the one that started the letter for the rebuild, right? And they were starting to do that whole thing. Were you okay when they got rid of him halfway through that?
So that way, wasn't that, I think Jeff Gorton was the GM at the time. Davidson might have been with Columbus at that point, but it was a little bit different because when the Rangers sent that letter out to the team, and I was a season ticket holder at that still at that point, you could see the decline coming, and you were in the middle of it. But it was not to say it was gradual, but it wasn't like this Ranger team this year where you're fresh off a conference finals appearance. People got you in the Final Four again, at least. Obviously tougher division this year with the improvements the Devils made and the Capitals, surging the way they are. But I mean, this was just like this was literally off a cliff. So they came into the year. We knew they couldn't really make any upgrades. The only addition they made was Riley Smith. They couldn't do anything until they got the Trouba contract off the books. And in a vacuum, getting the Trouba contract off the books should have been the beginning of the end. But then all the stuff around it is just I don't know what the answer is. Like I said, they all just need to get in a room and air everything out, Drury and the players. And then if nothing else, at least everybody knows where everybody stands. Even if you still hate each other afterwards, at least there's no secrets. There's no BS. There's no finding out things through the papers or online. That needs to happen at some point. And I know the holiday break's coming up here not too long, and they need to do it before then.
Well, even if they did get rid of Trouba in the offseason, there really wasn't going to be much for them to do anyway, because they would have to have done what they did, which is re-sign Shesterkin and, give the contract to Lafreniere. I don't think outside of that, there would have been so much more to do for them.
They would have had some space to do stuff if that would happen in the offseason, but because of the way it was handled, and Trouba was able to handle it in a way where he kind of made his list, like it made it tough on them to move him. And that was, Drury kind of screwed up there. State of Survival checking in. I think the Rangers are trying to beat my Islanders to the number 1 lottery pick. Damn you Rangers, can't just leave us Isles fans alone. That's a whole other hockey team that needs to be talked about at some point. But I mean, we kind of didn't have high expectations for the Islanders this year. And what has Drury done so far? There's no way he gets through this year not being fired. He's the GM of the team over 2 of their last the conference finals appearances over the last 3 years. And like we had talked about, Dolan likes him. So that's like the ultimate job security. So here we are.
If this was Boston, he might have been fired already.
Yes. Let me just clean my tears here again for all the Ranger fans out there. Let me just.
Carey Price is smiling somewhere, right, Chris?
Somewhere.
No empathy is expected from the other 31 fan bases. That's not what this is about. But it's just, this didn't just get derailed. This got derailed all the way into the ocean. This is it is bad right now.
What is it in the movie, like Batman the Dark Knight? It's like some people just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
I am some people. I identify as those people.
Well, Chris, you had Boston a year or two ago ready to have their downfall, and they have. Did you see this coming for the Rangers this quickly? I didn't see it.
I don't think it's like the problem is now is I don't think it's a skill thing. I think it's mental at this point. Like it's just you show, it's one thing to show up on a bad team and lose, like San Jose Sharks, but it's another thing when the expectations are there. And it's just like, you got to come into work and you got to answer all the Larry Brooks questions, and everybody wants to talk about the same thing. And you got guys that are pissed off, and you got to cross your GM in the hallway, and that he doesn't care about you and you don't care about him. And it's just not a fun, it's just not an enjoyable experience. So I think at this point, it's more mental. And yes, Drury's moving out guys, I think, who just don't want to be there. And I mean, there might be more. If you don't want to be there, I mean, he'll find you a chair somewhere else. But there are other teams that are, like I said, they're smelling some blood in the water here. I mean, Anaheim is Anaheim. We don't, doesn't matter for them. But Seattle did good here. They went out, they get a player, young player who wants to be somewhere else, wants to contribute. He can, Kakko can get out of that limelight and all that stuff. He doesn't have to worry about, the Big Apple in New York and all that fun, stuff. It's going to rain a lot more though in Seattle. So I hope he finds his condo somewhere close to the arena. But look, I think it's mental at this point. I think it's just trying to come back down and say, hey, we got to get the ship where it needs to go. Because you're not rebuilding this team, by the way. You have players on these exceptionally long-term deals. Like, you're not moving, again, we spoke on this side, like, we're not moving Zibanejad unless he's going to Siberia or something. Like, nobody's taking on the contract. Nobody wants him. We're not buying him out. So just strap in. It's going to be a fun ride. I'm enjoying it.
Somebody is. I know there are a lot of people are, but not been a good time. Not been a good time for my wintertime teams between the Jets and the Rangers. Like, I don't want to be like this sad going into the holidays here. So why don't we flip the page? Let's talk about another trade that happened. This happened last week, but it was after our last show. The St. Louis Blues here. They go out and get Cam Fowler from the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, his name has been in trade rumors forever as a potential. As the Ducks have not been a good team the last few years. In return, the Blues get Jeremy Biakabatuka and a 2027 second-round draft pick. I wonder if he's related to former NFL running back Tim Biakabatuka. In related news, the Blues trade Pierre-Olivier Joseph to the Penguins for future considerations. Obviously, with Fowler in, they can move that guy out. That does break up the two Joseph brothers playing together. So what that means to me when they go out and get Cam Fowler, because this is a guy we all expected to be traded to a contending team at the deadline if it didn't happen before then, is Nick Leddy's not returning anytime soon, which we kind of knew, is going to relieve some of the workload on Philip Broberg, who's, playing well, but he's still 23. You don't want to put too much on a young defenseman like that. So that helps relieve some of what he's doing there. Here's what I want to know. The Blues are plus 480 to playoffs, minus 800 to miss. Recently, they were plus 750 and minus 1200, respectively. Doug Armstrong this offseason offer sheeted Broberg and Holloway, two guys that are important to them every night. Brings in Jim Montgomery the second he gets fired from Boston. Now they improve their blue line with Fowler. They currently sit 3 points behind the wild card 2 spot and 5 points behind the central 3 spot. Are we buying this team to make the playoffs as a scrappy wild card team? Is it kind of, or do we think it's kind of all for naught in a tough Western Conference?
Tough Western Conference. That D-core continues to age. They're not like no offense to Cam Fowler, but homie doesn't move the nail. Like he doesn't move the needle. He's basically Torrey Krug, but with good feet. I mean, what else do you want from this team? They're mediocre at best. Like the Blues are just mediocre. They are neither elite nor terrible. They are just there. They exist. They play hockey. I don't get excited to watch the St. Louis Blues. I do not believe they're a playoff team. That Central Division is extremely good once the Colorado Avalanche, figure it out. And I mean, there's not enough for that. You would have to they would have to be better than others. Like I don't think they're going to get a spot in their division, which means they got to then qualify as wild card team. I don't necessarily think they're better than any team in the Pacific either. So I mean, they're there. They exist, but I do not get excited for them. I don't think this is a playoff year for them. No, they are a miss.
I mean, they're doing things to maybe lay the groundwork for next year, and this year, if it happens, it happens. But I mean, I like what's happening in St. Louis right now. I mean, I know it's Fowler is just like an aging guy. They brought in Ryan Suter and all that, but I like what they're trying to do, and I like at least the direction they're trying to go. Like they're showing hey, we believe in you guys.
I think the most important thing they did was bring in Montgomery for the future. It might not be this year, but you've seen what he's done in Boston. I think he's the most important piece of whatever happens this season. They have to jump Vancouver. That's not happening. I don't think they can jump Colorado. I don't know about Calgary and Utah. Calgary seemed to come back down to earth a little bit here. Utah, I don't even know. They don't even have
They're wildly inconsistent.
Yeah, the too inconsistent. At the very least, I think they were like 5-3-2, St. Louis in their last 10. So they've been playing well. I just and we talked about all offseason how tough the Western Conference is. It's just too tough for some of these teams that are kind of floating, to try to make this spot. We thought that Nashville was going to be one of these teams, and they're basically completely out of it at this point in time. So I don't know. I just don't see it happening for St. Louis this year. I think a possibility that Seattle can even jump them at some point, but
See how
yeah,
Kakko affects them.
yeah. I just outside of that, the only teams that they'll be better than Anaheim, San Jose, Chicago, and Nashville. That's pretty much it.
Nashville, the only team in the league, does not have double-digit wins yet. Only team in the league, and it's December 19th. Pretty bad.
Maybe they need more palm trees.
Maybe. I mean, there's really no palm trees in Nashville, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I was only there for a day, but I did not see any.
I hear that's why the Buffalo Sabres keep losing. Buffalo has state tax, though, so I hear that's another problem. But, Nashville has solved that. So now I guess all they need is palm trees, and they can be a contending team again. That's
Buffalo's a whole other thing. That's a team that needs to make some sort of trade. They need to make some sort of shakeup. Like, Lindy Ruff was the wrong hire, but you can't fire him now. You have to at least wait till the end of the year. So, like, you got to make some sort of shakeup there if you're in Buffalo.
I could have told you Lindy Ruff was a bad hire.
You and every Devils fan, but apparently they don't, they didn't pay attention to like anything that's happened.
Buffalo just never learns. They never learn.
Very fun of Terry Pagula and Kevin Adams to come down. They're like, oh yeah, we had a closed meeting with the players in Montreal. I was like, homie, you wanted to go down on St. Catherine and visit all those nice restaurants. You could have done that meeting at home. Wait till that, they were going to, whether you lose 11 or 12, you know what I mean? At that point, it doesn't matter. But they decided to make the trip down to Montreal. I guess so. They're like, yeah, let's have a closed meeting. We'll talk poorly about you. And let's hit up some of the nice restaurants in the old port and, rack up a bill and we'll have a good time here.
It's tax write-off.
There you go. So, I mean, it was, again, very convenient to be like, let's hold a closed-door meeting somewhere else so we can end the losing streak. And that didn't happen. But I hope they got a good meal wherever they went.
Yeah, hopefully it was good eats. The Rangers had a players-only meeting before the Kings game on Saturday, and look how well that worked out for them. Yeah. So we talked some Blues there. We got another defenseman trade here, and Chris can weigh in more on this. Montreal, Nashville swapped defenseman with Alexander Carrier going up to the Cabs, and Justin Barron going to the Music City there. I would imagine it's not a huge trade, but I mean, you got a guy that can help right now.
You do. I mean, Carrier has one thing working for him for sure. He speaks French, so that obviously gives him like a plus 4% boost in this province just for that. It's no secret that the Justin Barron trade for Tori Lehkonen kind of didn't work out the way like it was supposed to, and like that's a trade that Kent Hughes lost. And the good news is he was, I guess, in some like retrospect, he was able to see that was not a win. And then move on from it, because sometimes GMs and even us as fans, like we get tied to these guys. We're like, oh, one day. They have the gambler's mentality. Like if you keep going, it'll change. In reality, it won't. Like is Justin Barron an NHL player? I don't know, but Barron's going somewhere else. He's younger. Carrier comes in and can play well defensively. He's a right-handed shot, so those are always coveted. He's, he could slot into a top 4 spot permanently. I think this to me though solidifies a couple of other things. One, the play of Struble and Jackeye, they've played a lot better recently. So that probably made Barron even more expendable, right? Because Barron defensively was not, it's not it. So you move there. This maybe also sets the table for David Savard to leave. That maybe that becomes a trade chip at the trade deadline. You can say, hey, we'll keep carrying. You basically get the same version for younger, right? So there, I don't hate it. Montreal gets a, yes, he's a little bit older, but he's also probably better. And Nashville gets a chance at seeing what a young player can do. But I'm not going to I'm not going to cry that Justin Barron is gone. It is unfortunate. Montreal's now moved three defensemen. So that log jam that was there. I mean, if they go to get did they go to get Carrier? But I feel like you could have kept Kovacevic, and it would have been the same. But it's neither here nor there. But I'm excited to see he comes off IR. Apparently, he's healthy, and we'll see if he can provide some defensive stability to a team that certainly needs it.
Who would have thought the Predators would be sending guys out that could potentially play now for, taking shots back on younger guys that maybe pan out in a year or two? Change of scenery thing for sure, but yeah, didn't think the Predators would be in that position. A couple more things to get to here in headlines before we get to Jack Adams odds and Fantasy Festivus Part 2. The Minnesota Wild were already down Joel Eriksson Ek, Yakov Trenin, and Jacob Middleton. They now lose the other half of that top pairing. Brock Faber took a puck to the face against Florida last night, kind of hastily got off the rink, did not come back. We'll see what's going to happen there. He was holding his neck, so that makes you worry that, even if he's going to be back quick, he might still miss a game or two. See. Other defenseman news here. Rasmus Dahlin is going to return tonight for Buffalo. So, hey, maybe that snaps the losing streak for him. Maybe Dahlin back is enough. They're playing the Maple Leafs. We'll see. J.J. Moser for the Tampa Bay Lightning out 8 to 10 weeks with a lower body injury. There we go. Are we taking Dahlin to spark the Sabres to win tonight?
No, the Sabres are going to take another L. They seem to be collecting those. I am happy, though, in every single fantasy pool I have maximum exposure to Rasmus Dahlin, so I am happy that he is back because I need him. Taking a little bit of a beating here with his Wassel, so I need him to be in the lineup so I cannot take as big of a beating.
In that game tomorrow, not tonight, I misspoke.
Well, okay, so Buffalo, you'll lose tomorrow. Yeah, you get an extra day.
Marek Doucette wants to know, is that the last of the trades for the Habs? I don't think they. I
hope not.
Yeah, there's probably more coming, especially come deadline time if they're still towards the bottom of the standings.
There's some pending UFAs that need a one-way ticket to whatever other 31 teams are out there, unless you have a no trade clause actually no trade clause is fine. Just put them on waivers apparently, and that does wonders.
That's for
I don't think it. Yeah, I think it's the no move clause. Those are the ones that are. Those are a little bit harder, but I don't think any of those guys have a no move clause, so we're good.
So yeah, more deals will be happening there. So we went through all the headlines, talked about all the guys who are turning, guys trading, and all that stuff. Now let's do a little odds discussion here. We did last week. We did Calder, I believe. This week we're doing the Jack Adams, and there you see the awards up on the screen there. Spencer Carberry currently the odds-on favorite, -120. John Hines at +280. Scott Arniel +750. Then you start to get some of the mid-sized shots, 20-1 for Jim Hiller. Dean Evison +2,500. Same for Travis Green. And you see all those other names there on the right. I believe Ryan Huskill will eventually come back down and somebody else will jump in there. But when you look at those on the screen, I mean, they make it, there's nothing there that doesn't make sense. Carberry with the job he's done in Washington, absolutely. Hines with what's going on in Minnesota right now. I mean, this is when he's going to be coaching when his team's banged up. So we'll see how how things continue to go in Minnesota. And Scott Arniel, that's when you talk about making a coach hiring where you just promote an assistant guy that has NHL experience before. You keep the locker room the same. You keep it consistent. I know Winnipeg's come back down to earth here over the last month, but those three guys deserve to be where they are right now.
Yeah, Spencer Carberry seems like a pretty easy one, considering not even 12 months ago the Capitals were frauds. So, and then they go out, they make some key trades here. You bring in Chikrin, you bring in Dubois, and apparently that's worked out. And this is a very good team. Like, they're very, very solid. They got good goaltending. Their defense is solid. They got depth up front. I feel like it's his trophy to lose at this point. Like, Hines has done great. Arniel, I mean, the Jets were off to such a rocket start. It felt like it was in their back pocket here. I think if I had to take like a shot in the dark, two of them. One would be Craig Berube, but the Leafs would have to win the President's Trophy for that to happen. I think a lot of people expected the Leafs, I don't think the Leafs got better defensively. Like, that has not been the case. But, Toronto's goaltending has been solid. Their defense holds up. The Leafs are no longer this team that goes out and just pummels you like 6-4, right? That's not their game. They're more structured. So I would go there. I would also, if the Columbus Blue Jackets by any miracle make the playoffs, then it's Dean Evanson's. Like it can't be anywhere else. Then you take it away from everybody else because like I know they sit last today, but they still have it like the Metro's not that great. I don't think they'll be able to get a divisional spot, but maybe they compete for a wild card spot. And if they do make it, like if they do clip the wild card spot, then like it's Dean Evanson's. Considering everything that has happened to this organization, from the the Johnny Gaudreau thing to Babcock and the phone to just Columbus as a city, like that they if they get there, it's his.
How's Green so high up there?
Yeah, there's a couple of when I looked through this, there was a couple of names that I was like, why is that I guess because if Ottawa does have any success first year, low expectations, so maybe that's why he's still up there. It's still early in the year. But just to put that in perspective, Lindy Ruff is plus 7,500. So is Peter DeBoer in Dallas. So like that blows my mind. But hey, when you look at that, I agree. If the Blue Jackets, if they're like, let's go back to Craig Berube for a second. The problem is the award gets voted on by the end of the regular season. So, and I think the Berube effect will be felt, whether it's been successful or not, is in the playoffs. So that's why I don't think he gets it unless Toronto just starts to run away with like a President's Trophy kind of situation. Then I put him in that situation. I put him in the running.
Like, don't get it twisted. Leafs are batting bounce in the first round. Doesn't matter where they finish. So
I don't know. We'll see.
So that's the thing too with a guy like Sheldon Keefe. Is it because the Devils have this unique lineup? The good offense, good defense that people thought they were going to be here anyway with him as coach. That's why he's so low.
I think, maybe that part of, like you said, because like the expectations where the Devils had the talent, they just, hey, back to Lindy Ruff. The coaching was not quite there. Now you bring in a guy who, say what you want about what he did in Toronto. Listen, they were in the playoffs, so every year he was there. They were one of the top teams in the East every year he was there. Now you bring a guy like him in, and look at that. The Devils and the Capitals are battling it out, and the Hurricanes, all three for those top three spots every night. So yeah, but if the Devils win the division or if they start to run away, you'll see him come up. Dean Evason, you said, I think even if they sniff the playoffs, he'll probably become a finalist. Maybe he doesn't win, but if they're in that mix down the stretch, just to have them there, for all the aforementioned reasons and everything that's happened in Columbus, that's why you see a Blue Jackets head coach in the top 5 right now. On the other guys that I see as longer shots right now, Peter DeBoer plus 7,500. Dallas is expected to be good, but maybe if they go on a run, he can get there. I don't really see anybody else in terms of the long shots that I would look at. I know like guys like Bruce Cassidy and John Cooper are plus 9,500, but sometimes when you're a good team, you're a coach of a good team, you get no respect in that regard because you're expected to be good.
At first, I was going to say, maybe this would be good for John Hines since, Minnesota was not good. They underachieved big time last season, and now they're off to this really good start. And then I started thinking, Washington has been good all season, and this run that they've just went on has been all without Alexander Ovechkin. I mean, they've done this all without their best.
Who's close to coming back, by the way.
Yeah. So I think it has.
I don't know what's in his vodka, but it seems to be healing his bones.
Yes. And just to put the coach of the year odds in perspective, Peter Laviolette, Mike Sullivan, Rick Tocchet, Greg Cronin, Andrew Burnett, Jared Bednar, Martin St. Louis, and Derek Lalonde all have the worst odds, all combined.
Okay.
That gives you an idea of how bad the things are in Rangers and Nashville, that their two coaches are literally tied for the worst odds with teams you would expect to have the worst coaching odds. It is just there. Going back to the Capitals there, State of Survival saying Connor McMichael is making waves. He sure is. That's a guy that's been playing very well for them for most of the year. Also checking in, OEL's not young enough for continuous top pairing minutes. Riley's not a number 1 or 2, blah, blah, blah. Tanev is not a number 2. If they get an injury, they're screwed. Yeah, they're not deep on the blue line, but
which makes it more surprising why they're where they are, which I think is the Craig Berube effect. The team is more committed to playing defense. They are committed to playing in their own zone. They have no choice. You just named all those bodies that are there. They are one injury away, though, from it all exploding.
Yes, for sure. Now, let's say Jim Montgomery plus 6,000 right now. If he gets the Blues into the playoffs, midseason coaching change, literally started the season in Boston, gets fired, gets hired less than a few days later, that's another, if you think the Blues are going to get into the playoffs, and, then maybe that's a way to go. But I mean, right now it's Spencer Carberry's to lose. And unless the Capitals go on an absolutely terrible losing streak where they drop 10 in a row or something like that, minus 120 might be the best you see it the rest of the way here. I'm seeing it minus 135 in some books already.
Yeah, no, still a no. It's just, I can't see the Blues getting there. One, two, I still would give it to Spencer Carberry. Because even if the Blues do get there, I think the general consensus is that we know that Jim Montgomery's a good coach. I think the only people who don't know are the people in Boston. So, I would still give it to Carberry there, because especially if the Capitals continue on their trajectory that they're on, that's still more impressive.
Capitals are at 1 point behind the Devils for first place in the Metro. However, they have 3 games in hand on New Jersey. Carolina, 41 points, 3 points behind the Capitals, same number of games played there. So, yeah, those 3 are just going to be jockeying for the Metropolitan position there throughout the year. At this point, it's Carberry's to lose unless something major happens there. Nobody else on the list that we really want to, Berube we talked about, Keefe we talked about, Everson we talked about. I think that pretty well covers it there. Like I said, some of the longer shots, if for some reason you think Peter DeBoer at plus 7,500 is a good way to go, or Jim Montgomery at plus 6,000, or Joe Sacco also plus 7,500 if he can turn things around for Boston. But apparently coaching wasn't the problem there. But here we go. That'll do that for the awards here. Let's get to Fantasy Festivus Part 2, because that's what we're all excited for here. And we did the defensemen and the goaltenders last week. Now it's down to you see Chris Kreider there. He'll be one of the names discussed. Maybe he'll be taking part in the feats of strength, as Frank Costanza likes to have there. Let's get to the first guy on the list here. And for me, it's Zach Hyman. Now, I know he's come around lately. He's got 6 goals in his last 5 games. So, yes, I think maybe he's finally turned a corner. But that first 6 weeks of the season, he was just atrocious. He had, average, ADP of 22.5, 10 goals and 5 assists in 26 games played for a guy who had 54 and 23 last year. Yes, he's coming out of it now, but I think he needs to have a spot at the table for just the miserable start he got off to.
Yeah, didn't we give out a warning on this show during draft night about Zach Hyman? I think we did.
We did, and I still took him in some leagues.
So that sounds like an Adam. Adam, it sounds like you need to be sitting at the table with us. It sounds like we let Zach Hyman go sit somewhere else. We all knew what was happening here. We understood.
It would be an honor to have a dinner at Frank and Estelle's house. Let's just be real here. It would be an honor. Yeah, but here's the thing. Listen, I don't know if you expected. I didn't expect 54 goals out of him again, but I would at least be closer to the pace you were at last year.
But we understand that Zach Hyman is a product of the things that surround him, right?
Yes.
He's a product of whatever McDavid, Draisaitl, and that power play can do, right? So, the guy, player A overperforms, then player B comes down to the median where he should be, and everybody's going well, what's wrong with him? He is exactly where he should be. He is Zach Hyman. He's probably a 25, 30 goal scorer. That's what he is. He's not scoring 54 again. And 30 is probably the ceiling for him. He's not a guy who racks up a ton of assists. He's, you take pucks off of faces, but for him, they got to go into the net. Poor homie's got a broken nose now, and he's still trucking out there. I'm not putting him at the table because I understand. It's, what I mean?
Even as a second round pick, though, he was well established within the second round.
Sure, but that is a poor choice from those of you who took Zach Hyman in the second round. I'm not going to point anybody out directly, but if you took him in the second round, mistakes happen. Mistakes happen. That's it. You should have known better.
So, Ant, you have the deciding vote here. Does Mr. Hyman need to come to the table or not?
Considering all the other players on here that I think are going to go to the table, I'm going to leave him off for this one.
All right.
I feel like there are other deserving players here that need to make this table. One is on my team as well.
All right, so we're gonna give Zach a Metro card. I don't even know if they still have those in New York anymore. And he'll be on his way on the F train, maybe on his way back to the city, or you know, he'll actually probably be taking the A train down to the airport to JFK. And now next on the list would be Philip Forsberg. And yes, there are many things wrong in Nashville this year, but 9 goals and 13 assists in 32 games is not cutting it, considering he had 48 and 46 last year. This is another guy that was going squarely in the second round of drafts and was counted on to be a cornerstone winger. As far as I'm concerned, I already made a nameplate play setting for him with his name on it. Like he's got to be at the dinner, I think.
He went early second round, and also in some of our mock drafts with people in attendance, he was going towards the end of the first round as well. So yeah, he's sitting at the table.
ADP of 20.9.
Yeah, he's sitting at the head of the table, by the way. We did have a conversation with Philip Forsberg, because this is not about a team performing poorly. Like, he's played in Nashville now for forever, right? And we've seen some Nashville teams lack like offense, right? Like, nobody looks at that team last year and thought, wow, this was an offensive juggernaut, and he still put up 94 points. And he is, to me, he's a point per game player. Like, that's his pace. So, like, I don't know what's happening here for, like, do you want to talk about it, Phil? Like, what do we need here? Are we missing, like, what Swedish meatballs do we need? Like, where do we pick them up? Yeah. What do you like? Do you need family to come down? What's the thing here? Like, you can't tell me that having, Brady Shea, Jonathan Marchessault, and Steven Stamkos in town has ruined everything for you, because you had nothing before. And those guys alone are not doing anything. So, like, what's happening here?
And I get it. Like, you bring a bunch of guys like that in, especially 2 top 6 forwards. You have to find how make things work and all that. And there's a bit of an adjustment period and all that. Adjustment period's over. Either adjust or I don't know what. But like, and Forsberg was a guy that he did it last year. It was him, Ryan O'Reilly, and Gus Nyquist, and they were just fine. And now this year, they're just like everything in Nashville. It's atrocious, and I don't understand why that's the case, but nonetheless, you're not performing, so you're probably in for the feats of strength too. You're probably going to have to fight Frank. We'll see if anybody else has to go to the table here. We got 4 guys left to talk about before we check in on the fantasy league, do a little TMP, and get out of here on the Total Hockey Now. Don't forget, give us a like, follow, write, subscribe, rate, review, whatever the preferred method is on your preferred platform. It helps. Elias Pettersson. His point production overall is okay. But for a guy who has broken the 30-goal barrier the last 3 seasons, he's on pace for the low 20s this year. Is he doing enough outside of goal scoring to get a pass here, especially considering JT Miller was out of the lineup for a couple of weeks? So teams could key in on Pettersson's line. They didn't have Miller's line where they had to like pick their poison there. ADP of 22.6.
I feel like he's doing enough of where we know he was going to be. Like, we didn't have him. He didn't get taken high in the draft when we did the fantasy draft. No one was going for Elias Pettersson. Not like years past. I don't know if I could put him at the table. I feel like we're getting the production that we would. Maybe he kicks it up for a week or 2 and goes on a point streak. But I don't know. The team's not doing. The team's pretty good. I can't really get on. I don't know if I could get on it. Maybe Chris will.
I'm having a hard time putting him at the table because, like, for his career, he is averaging exactly a point per game. And the problem is he a 100-point player in the NHL, or is he probably closer to a 70? And I think that's probably where he falls into. The problem is sometimes I feel like he's a little bit disengaged. I just don't feel like he's, I don't know, there. And I feel like that's the opposite with JT Miller. I feel like he's a little too engaged. And apparently that, like, they don't get along with each other, which is fine. You don't have to love your coworkers, but you got to figure it out. And I don't know, man. I'm not, like, considering we just put Forsberg at the table and he has been an abomination this year. Like it's not as terrible for us. But again, I did not expect him to. I stayed away from him because I feel like he's a risk, man. The floor is low with him. The ceiling is high, but the floor is extremely low. He is peaks and valleys. When it goes well, it goes well. But when it goes poor, it's really bad for him. So I'm not going to sit him at the table, but I will have a spare plate at the corner of the table and a chair just in case.
Maybe we send him with a prepackaged doggy bag. You know, like like you don't have to sit at the table, but like you're going to eat some of the food. Maybe
one meatball, a little bit of mashed potatoes, no gravy.
Like a light lunch amount of leftovers, not even like a nice dinner like leftover amount. Just like
that's it. Yeah,
enough for a lunch that you still need to supplement one item to make it like a decent lunch. That's what we'll send you with there.
He's not getting the main course at the other table with all the people who are exceeding expectations. He doesn't get that.
No. And I'm on the side of I'm not putting him at the table because, again, the JT Miller, you lose him, and now it's basically Pettersson's line. You know, and I do find that interesting that they don't get along because JT's a little too intense and maybe Pettersson's not intense enough. Maybe you wish a little bit would rub off on the other one and it would balance out. But we'll see how things go with Vancouver here now that they got Miller back the last week or so. 3 more players to get to before we get to TMP and check in on the Fantasy Hockey League and wrap things up. That's what Marek wants to know. We'll let you know here in a couple of minutes. Let's go. We got a couple of Rangers on the board here whose names have come up on the show already. First is Chris Kreider, who has 10 goals and 1 assist in 28 games at 39 and 36. Listen, he's a 33-year-old, power forward with speed, a lot of wear and tear on that body. Some regression was absolutely expected. I avoided him in drafts for that reason. And yes, there are the aforementioned issues in the locker room, ADP of 40.3. But how does somebody on a top power play unit only have 1 assist less than a week before Christmas? Like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, straight to the table, Chris. Like for other reasons, of course, but if we're speaking just about his performance on the ice, 1 assist is just it's unacceptable. I know he scores goals. I know he tips them all in, but like, homie, he has 1 more assist than I do in the NHL this season. That's not it. It's just not good enough. I didn't expect him, like you said. I stayed away from him. I didn't think he would be as good, but this is horrendous. And again, he will always sit at the table, even if he does well. Like again, it is what it is for Kreider, right? He's in the forever black book there, Brian Howard from The Office. So I just, you know what I mean? I don't, you know what I mean? I don't care. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure, pays his taxes on time and everything, holds the door open for, old ladies. But in my book, he's the worst.
Honestly, you could go down the entire Rangers roster. I think they're all one long bench for that, like one of those picnic benches. One long picnic bench for every single one of the Rangers right now need to be at the table.
Not Will Cooley. I'll give him a pass. We'll give Cooley a pass.
Yeah.
We'll give him a
pass. But everybody else, come on down, though.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, and it's funny, 6 months can be a lot of time or sometimes it's not enough time. This was the same guy back when he had a playoff hat trick. People were literally driving past his home and throwing hats on his lawn that night and the next morning. And now it's okay. 6 months later, is this guy getting shipped out the door as one of the longest tenured Rangers here? One of the better players in their franchise history going to be out the door here. A guy who was his line mate here, Mika Zibanejad, had 6 goals, 15 assists this season. He had 26 and 46 last year. I know we hate this stat, but I think it does add a little to the portrait here. He's minus 17. That's no bueno. I understand it's a meaningless stat, but here I think it at least gives you a little bit of a window. I know center's a deep position in fantasy, and you could wait on it to a degree, but Zibanejad was supposed to be one of those guys where if you waited a little bit longer, you could still get him ADP of 60 and be a decent low-end center 1, or even if you waited on center and you want to have a good a 1P and then a 2A, he's a good 2A. He's not living up to that. He's absolutely at the table as well.
Real simple. Is he a Ranger? Yes. Check. Sit at the table. As simple as that. I mean, there are other qualifications to get you there, right? If you played poorly, which he has as well. But It's just not good enough. Again, another guy seeing top power play minutes, man. It's not it. It's not acceptable. You got to go out there and lead the charge. He is not doing that. The decline is probably here, or he's on the other side of 30 now. But like this seems like a rapid decline here. Like 2 years ago, he had 91 points. Like, is he a 90-point player? Probably not. But do I think he could be like 70 plus, like he did last season? Yeah, and he is nowhere near that pace.
Other thing I'll say about Mika here too, Larry Brooks said on the Spit and Chicklets podcast, they talked about how he can be a little sensitive, and I get that, but like at a certain point, it's like
you cannot be sensitive in New York.
No.
I mean, I know that's it's the old tagline, but like you can't be. You just can't.
Not only can you not be sensitive as an athlete in New York, you can't be sensitive as an athlete as one of, we'll say, the marquee players on the team. The one that's going on, the season ticket advertisements and all that stuff on the subways and all that. Like, yeah, like
Where's he ranked for you? He's like 2 or 3, right? Right now, he would like going into this season. You had to rank your roster. Has to be what, 3, 4
in terms of best player on the Rangers.
Yeah,
I'd say top 3. I mean, he should be. I mean, well, let's see. Shesterkin.
Yep.
Adam Fox got to throw in there, and then I guess Panarin. That's your top 3. He's top 5.
He's probably top 3 as a forward.
Yeah, as a forward for sure.
Top 3, and he's probably not 3 either.
No. But at the bottom line here, it's just more is needed from him, and it's just at this point, if things are getting this bad, if things don't change here in the next week or two, just blow it all up. Just like you said, you have a couple of pieces. I know you can't do a full blown rebuild, but like just let's go. Like there's no point in keeping malcontents around if and not even to call them a malcontent, but like if the relationship is beyond repair, like something's got to give. Now, one more player to get to here, and this is one of your guys coming into the year, guy you were taking on a tunnel mock draft, Wyatt Johnston. 6 goals, 13 assists this season. He had 32 and 33 last season, and 24 and 17 the year prior. So he was trending the right way. He thought this would be the year. Right wing on that top line in Dallas. Now he's centering the third line. He does get saved by the fact that he's got 7 power play points. So a little less than half of that is coming in the power play. He's chipping in on that aspect. ADP of 53.9. Is Wyatt Johnston going to be the 4th person of the 6 to go to the table today and potentially have to fight in the feats of strength at Fantasy Festivus?
Wyatt, get your ass to the table, man. I thought I got an absolute steal getting him in the 4th round of the draft. And I've dealt with a lot of injuries, is why my team is, so down right now. But I thought Wyatt Johnston would at least be providing, goals off. And it's just been so lackluster over such a long stretch of time that, I have even been considering putting him on the trading block.
I have him in another league where I've held on to him, but I think I'm finally at a point where I have to cut him. Like I think he's gotten to that point. I've debated that with Lafreniere. Obviously, in a keeper league, you're not cutting Lafreniere, but in a year-to-year league, a redraft league, I've actually had that thought about him at some point to try and make room for other guys. I won't do it, but
and I have both of them.
Johnston, I think, is a guy at this stage you can probably he might have a good second half, and you can be like, I shouldn't have cut him. But like if you have the roster space to be patient with a guy like Johnston, yeah. But if you're in a situation where you cannot afford that dead spot and waiting for him to come around, I think it might be time to cut bait, depending upon how deep your league is.
It's like Huberdeau for me when I had him. It's like I'm holding, we're waiting, and it's like not happening. My team is not scoring goals, and I attribute not only the injuries to Miller and Besser earlier on in the season, and obviously Ovechkin. But the fact that Wyatt Johnston's been this healthy throughout the entire season, it has really not done anything on a week-to-week basis for me at all.
I'm going to take it a little bit easy on Wyatt here.
Oh.
He's 21. Okay, he's having, I think, the sophomore slump of 1 year back. You know what I mean? Like I feel like last year we were gifted. He had 65 points, and we thought he was heading in the right direction, and we thought maybe he could take another step. And I was on that train as well. He's 21 years old. He's playing like, and I guess it doesn't hurt as much because the Dallas Stars have a little bit of depth there. Like they can get guys into line. They don't have to run them out there as much, right? You don't have to kind of like force feed it to them, right? Like if it's not working, you can take them back and put him on the third line, get maybe better matchups for him. He doesn't have to go out there and play the best players and stuff like that, right? Like if you want to take shots at him, I mean, Jason Robertson's not any better. He's older, and I would say I expect more from him than I do from Wyatt, but. So I'm not ready to sit him at the table because he's 21, and we were all very high on him. So it stings, but it's not enough to put him at the table. Not as a 21-year-old. If he was 31, we'd be having a different conversation, but not as a 21-year-old.
When you have Wyatt Johnston on your team, and you have an aging Tyler Seguin, a rookie in Stankoven, and Wyatt Johnston's the worst of the three, that's a rough go for me, man.
Yeah.
And now I don't have Seguin because he's injured and out for the season. Yeah. Stankoven has now kind of slumped.
Ash is letting us know how he feels about his team right now.
My gosh.
He's also 21, and he's got 4-13 on the season. He's at least in the Calder like he's eligible for the Calder. Like, Johnston is not. Johnston's had 2 years in this league. So if it's not a sophomore slump, what is it, like a junior year drop off? Is that what we're calling it?
I mean, we see players have really good years and then kind of struggle a little bit after that. I mean, Matty Bernier is being one of them. So I mean, I'm not willing to sit him at the table, not considering what the others, like the bar that we've established right now, the precedent does not warrant Johnson sitting at the table. The others, we thought, like Forsberg and Pettersson, those are guys way up there and they suck. And the Rangers are just miserable. So those guys deserve to be there. Like they fully deserve it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I have an if and an and or like a but for why.
I don't know. Anthony and I are ready to send him there, so he's going to a 2-1 there. So
all right, send him to the abyss.
He's going to the table, whether you like it or not. He's going.
I'll sneak him a doggy bag on the way out of the good stuff, though. I'd be like, "Why? I just want you to know that I didn't put you there." But it is what it is.
Don't undermine our parenting. It's not good in front of the children because if you got one parent like saying this, like that's just not good.
Sure, yeah. That he's going to start coming to see me for forgiveness.
Exactly. Like all of a sudden, like it's going to be your problem now. He's going to come to you for everything. He's not coming to Anthony or I anymore. You're the one that's going to have to start saying no to him. Anyway, there we go. There's Fantasy Festivus. We'll do a quick league check-in here and then TMP and get out of here before our last Christmas episode here of Total Hockey Now. Always appreciate you checking in, the comments, all that good stuff. Let's bring up the Total Hockey League standings here as I bring those up. So right now, if we're looking at this week, Gene's got me down 8-2. I still think I can rally here a little bit. Chris Wassel, taking it to Chris in the battle of the Chris's right now. North of the American Chris beating Canadian Chris. Then we got Flying V's. We got Ant with Silver Fox. There we go. Tight matchup there. Ant's brother taking it to Josh Wagner. And then you see the matchups there. Max Knight 7-2 over Andrew Dewhurst and Wally Geis over on up 6-3 on Did You Fart. And then we look at the standings here. Chris has a 7-point lead on first place over Gene. I'm a few points behind him there. And you see it's kind of pretty well spread out. Josh Wagner and Did You Just Fart, the only two guys not have breaking the 100-point barrier yet this year. We'll take a look and see if there's been any major transactions. Really, Marco Rossi, he deserved to be added. I didn't have the space. Kiefer Sherwood, a guy that's been back and forth on my roster a little bit, but nice add there. And then we see the trading list there of Besser, Faber, and Lafreniere from Anthony's team, trying to make something happen here. I've had people try to peddle Lafreniere to me, and if it was a keeper league, I would do it. Right now, I just can't touch a Ranger right now.
Yeah, I really was torn between Sherwood and Rossi, and just I think the matchup worked a lot better for Sherwood the night that I needed. And then Rossi was just gone at that point. So I don't know if I'm going to be killing myself later on for not being able to pick him up. I just got Faber just got injured, so I could have used him. And I did pick up Tyler Toffoli, and he paid dividends for me right away. He had a great night the other night.
Gene adding another Minnesota forward. That seems par for the course right now.
Maybe he'll give you
maybe he can give me
now.
Kaprizov. Thoughts? Yeah, maybe Gene. I don't know. Thinking out loud here, kind of thing. Slip him over as I try.
I will say this about my matchup. I did have a little faux pas the other day as I forgot to put in my goalie, and he had a great game the other night.
The same mistake cost me a win in the one of the FSGA leagues. And had I remembered to start that goalie that got that, I would have won. And I was sick to my stomach over that.
Yeah, I thought I changed my entire roster, but apparently I forgot to put in Bobrovsky, and he had an amazing game the other night. Awful feeling.
Yeah, that happens. And listen, sometimes if you don't get the goalie matchups early enough, you forget, or next thing you know, with me on the West Coast, I gotta have I gotta remember to look before 4:00 for all those East Coast ones. So that does happen sometimes. That the day gets away from you, and it's like, oh crap, it's 4:15. It's like you didn't double check. If you have a goalie handcuff situation, if you're not sure if it's like a back-to-back, who's going to go which night, sometimes you get burned that way too.
You guys don't set your lineups in the shower in the morning?
I do, but sometimes starting goalies are not announced yet. Sometimes
because I have the goalie tandem, it works out a lot better for me when it comes to swapping out goalies. Yeah. But usually I'll do it the night before, and I don't know how I forgot to change and not put in Bobrovsky. I don't know how I missed that.
Sometimes I just do it in between shampoo and conditioner,
I mean, I usually will update my fantasy lineups during a different bathroom activity. Kudos to you for doing it in the shower, and I guess putting the waterproof bag over it or whatever. I mean, that's
the iPhone is already waterproof, so you just bring it in there, and you just while you're waiting for it to rinse. Sometimes you got to exfoliate, so you got to wait like 3 minutes. Why not set a lineup?
I will say this. I'm always looking to add someone at midnight, and then I forget that Adam is in the West Coast and has set it for then. And I'm like, am I going to set an alarm for 3 a.m. and just to get up and get this player? And then it just doesn't end up happening.
I mean, I'm happy to set it to 9 o'clock so I can jump all the East Coast people that might be asleep already for any additional claims. If that's what
you worry about having to set it at 4:15, but you also get the benefit of if you're up at midnight, the waiver claim goes through. Like you get first pick, first abs. Like us, it's 3. It's middle of the night here.
And both of in one of my dynasty football leagues, I am not against. I am not above setting an alarm at 12:01 to wake up, see what happened, and see who else I could snag for free after blind bids, or like you wake up to pee in the middle of the night, like, oh, let me see. Yeah,
it should be good for Ant here soon because you'll be up all night anyways. So while you're there, might as well, holding baby in one hand and then I don't know, making a waiver claim in the other. That's it.
When you're holding a baby and you're feeding, or you're just like they're napping and you can't really do much else, and you don't want the TV too loud because you don't want to wake them up. You get real good at fantasy, especially now that the apps have gotten a lot better on the phones.
Yeah, I might be moving to president of hockey operations and giving the baby GM job. So
wow, he's gonna hand things over pretty quick. I mean, the kid's got to prove himself a little bit here,
right off the bat.
Right. It's a culture. It's a culture. It's going to be a culture change. I'm hoping she doesn't, or he pull a Chris Drury here.
I was going to say,
want to come in and establish a positive culture here for the team that you have. Maybe change the medical staff, see if that can help them out.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're doing better than Drury's relationship, then you're off to a good start there, because things not good for him. All right, we got TMP coming up here, and then we're going to get out of here and say farewell. I'll go first. My pick hit. I went 2-1 last week. Today, just going to be one pick here. And for me, it's the Kings on the puck line, plus 165 at the Flyers. Phillies on a back-to-back. Did not look great against Detroit last night. That was a seesaw affair. The Kings, on the other hand, they lost to the Penguins 3-2 in overtime the other night. Maybe a little bad taste in their mouths. The Kings, right now, I got the stats written down for why I picked them tonight. Phillies lost by 2 or more in the last 5 regulation losses. Kings have covered this in 5 of their last 7 victories. I acknowledge that maybe this might be a empty netter situation that I'm hoping for, but at plus 165 with the disparity of opponents, I'll give me the Kings on the road against the Flyers tonight for sure.
Oh, okay. I'll accept it.
All right. Now, what do you got going on tonight up north of the border?
Edmonton, the Boston Bruins are on the final game of their West Coast swing. They were miserable to start. They have gotten a little bit better. They are still a miserable hockey team. Edmonton is back to doing the thing that they are good at, which is stuffing the nets. So they have, I think they've scored 20 goals in the last 4 games, with like 13 of them coming in the last 2 or something like that. So they have been scoring. They've been winning as well. So I didn't think there'd be a time in 2024 where I'd say this, but I need Jeremy Swayman to start so we can get lit up, because that'd be kind of fun. And I just need Stuart Skinner to be like decent. That's it. Just Boston has not been good. The end of a road trip, they just want to go home, maybe mail it in. It's nothing fun to do in Edmonton this time of year. It's cold. So just, pack it up and just leave. Let Edmonton, big night from Connor McDavid wouldn't hurt.
Speaking of road trips, the Kings are currently on an extended East Coast road trip. They do finish up their East Coast road trip on a back-to-back against the Washington Capitals. I'm going to be all over the Capitals in that one. End of a long trip on the East Coast, getting a tough team to close it out. And it's on a back-to-back. I can't wait for that. That's coming up in a few days now. And you got a pick I like tonight. That's one of the other ones that I was considering for this, but have placed a unit on. What do you got?
I have Vancouver at Vegas under 5.5 total goals, which I think is a -1. Yep, you got it right there, -120. You got Vegas leading the Pacific Division. Canucks with a win can be within I think a point or two of that top spot. So they're at the Golden Knights are at 43 points. Canucks are at 38, so they'll be within 2 points of that top spot in the division. I like this game a lot. To me, I think it's the game to watch tonight out of all the games. So I'm going to stick with that. I will say this about these bets here. I could have thought that I went 1-1 on my little doubleheader bet. I can't remember the games now, so I'm going to take the loss. I'll take the 2-3 record. But I thought I split that.
I thought I only saw one pick there. So if there was a second pick, it was unaware on the sheet. But I only saw the one there last week, which was
not last week. It was the week before. I had missed the week, and then I did a little double header pick, and I thought I split it. I don't remember the games anymore, so I will take that L.
I feel like we have to go back and check the tapes, see if
go back on the tapes. Yeah.
Now to talk about your underbet here. In their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their last 6 games have gone under. That's the way Vegas plays, defensive team, and a team like Vancouver coming in on a back-to-back here. Again, tough divisional game, looking maybe to buckle down and try and grind out a victory that way. Vancouver coming off last night's overtime loss at Ottawa. They've also gone under in 1, 2, 3 of their last 4 games there. So
that means it's going to be way over. It's going to be like 9-something.
Because we both like it, it's going to be like a 5-3 final for sure. And it's going to be like by the second period, it'll be over. It's not even, There we go. All right. So that's Total Hockey Now. It's the last one before Christmas here. What do we got coming up on the Slapshot podcast, Chris?
Tomorrow we return to Puck Doku. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I got slaughtered last time. So one more show for the year. We're going to talk about some hockey stuff and I don't know, maybe offend another fan base. Who knows?
You're good at that.
Got to, I evenly distribute to the teams that underperform. If your team doesn't underperform, it's fine. Or if you're Chris Kreider. But other than that, if your team doesn't underperform, you're fine. Just keep going on your way.
This would be prime time to poke the Ranger fans if you really want to get a reaction.
Don't worry. They know.
Speaking of New York fans, Subway to Shea podcast. Mets have been quiet since Juan Soto. Are we expecting any more moves there over in Flushing?
I think so. I think they're going to get one more hitter. I think that they're going to get a middle to top starter. I know they've been doing a lot of depth moves, but this week or this Sunday, we will be looking at first base and seeing whether Pete Alonso will return. And if not, the other options that are available. So we'll check in on that on Subway to Shea.
Griffin Cannon, you guys signed, hopefully has some better luck for you than he did with the Angels. If nothing else,
Yeah.
he's on a much better team. But was that a 1-year, $4 million deal? He can't really low risk, high reward kind of situation there. And of course, Rip and Riff. This week's due to technical difficulties, the episode never actually came out, but we chopped it up, released the pack rip separately, released Rip and Rant separately. So you check out all those segments there. We got one more Rip and Riff this year as well, coming up on Monday before Christmas, and then we'll see you next year. So make sure you tune in for that this upcoming Monday, technical issues aside. Hopefully things will get back to going there. But for this edition of Total Hockey Now, episode 72, for my line mates, at Ant Rivera 86, and at Fuzzy Chris 91, I'm at Adam Bernard. Thanks as always for watching, commenting, whether it's live or later on. Appreciate it. You have to give us a like, rate, subscribe, follow, review, all that good stuff. But last time before Christmas, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. We're on the other side of Christmas here on Total Hockey Now. There we go, fellas.